talk Browns for a little bit before we bring in local comedian Bill Squire. Kimberly Martin of ESPN, who has done some very good reporting and had some good inside information that turned out to be true on the Browns recently, said something about Shedeur Sanders that caught my eye. When you draft a guy in the 3rd round like Dillon Gabriel, or in the 5th round like Shedeur Sanders, typically that's not the draft position you're going for when you're looking at a future starting quarterback. Typically those guys, there have been some exceptions, turn into starters, but for the most part, you're drafting a guy that you long-term see as a backup and whatnot, and Shedeur may not fit that category exactly, but he was a 5th-round pick. The precedent says that's typically not a future starter. However, according to Kimberly Martin, she said the other day, quote, "In the Browns building, there are people who believe that Shedeur can 100% be the starter." G. Bush, I know it's only been 2 open OTA practices. We haven't even reached mandatory minicamp yet. But based on everything we've seen and heard from Berea, do you agree with Kimberly's assessment that there is a chance Shedeur Sanders could be the Browns' long-term answer at quarterback?
Yeah, I don't know why this was eye-opening. As you can see, this is how I do my when I title something. You got to be able to title something and give people quotes that they can go with, but at the same time, it's not clickbait. So let's break this down. She really didn't say nothing groundbreaking. She said there's thought process.
She said there's a chance.
There's a chance. 100%. People think there's a chance that, or there's 100% chance that this man can be the starting quarterback. Now, she didn't say week 1.
No.
She didn't say by week 8. She didn't even say this year. To be a franchise quarterback, that means you're on the roster. They feel that you have the prerequisite skills that you can be a franchise quarterback. I don't think people anywhere, even Shedeur Sanders detractors, would argue with that too much. They've seen that he can throw the ball and he has some skill set. It's just all about when he's going to get an opportunity to play. Right now, he's not receiving the first team reps, which is not to say that he's not going to be getting them or are getting them behind closed doors. But I think that this is a no-brainer. Like, why would the Cleveland Browns wouldn't have, if they didn't think that he was going to be a guy that possibly could be a franchise quarterback, why draft him after you took Dillon Gabriel? You should have just rolled with Dillon Gabriel and said, all right, well, we cool what we got. The reason they went and moved up to take him was for the fact that a lot of people still believe that he had first, second round talent. He was one of the best quarterbacks in this draft. And they believe that he can, he got some talent, he can spin the football. So I don't think this is groundbreaking. I think this is what people think. I mean, it's not too far off base from what he's shown so far. And at the end of the day, it doesn't say when, how, where, when, or where. It just says people think that he could be a starting quarterback.
Yeah, I think what threw everybody was the use of 100%. It almost makes it sound like you're conflating what she's saying with the fact that, yeah, there's a 100% chance that he's going to be the starter. No, there's a 100% chance that he could be the starter. There's a 100% chance that I could win the lottery tomorrow. That's a fact. Like, if you think about that statement, you're like, wait a minute. Because there's so much space between the two. I could win, and there's a 100% chance I could win. But there's a 0.00001% chance that I will win. So I think, I don't know if she was smart in crafting her language that way to try to make a headline, and here we are talking about it on the show. So it worked if that was her intention.
Well, look, at least his chance is better than winning the lottery. It's a 25% chance.
Yeah, if you do it based on this, based on there's 4 guys in camp and one of them has to be the starter.
There you go.
Now, if you say that they're all equal, then yeah, he's got a 25% chance. Now, if you start handicapping it and you look at skill set, you might say Joe Flacco has a 33% chance, Kenny Pickett has a 27% chance, Shedeur Sanders has a 19% chance, and our boy from Oregon has a 14% chance. I don't know what those numbers would be. But yeah, he's got a chance. He's on the roster.
Yeah.
When the 49ers drafted Brock Purdy last out of all of the players drafted, and he was Mr. Irrelevant, he had a 100% chance that he could win the starting job, and he did.
It's a valid point, Jay.
So I think that it's in the semantics. I also think this. I hope that the most fans don't look at practice tape and say, oh, he's the guy, because I'm going to give you an example of why that would be crazy to do that. There's many reasons why. Tyrese Halliburton hit an unbelievable shot last night. Unbelievable because of the situation, not because of the circumstance. The circumstance was it was a 14-foot jump shot. McNuggets can do that. I can do that. You can do that. Jason can do that.
No.
I don't know about Jason.
Ant and Steve could even do that. And you know what? I'm throwing in Bull for good measure.
I lost to the kids at the Boys
This
and
is
Girls
true.
Club.
Yeah,
This is true.
We got some.
Okay, maybe
I did
Ant's
knock
not on
G
that
out.
list.
I knocked G out.
You
at the
did.
Boys and Girls Club.
I appreciate that too.
Here's what I'm saying. It's like when I
Son
go
of
to
a-
Muirfield and I watch the Memorial, and I'm sitting on the 8th green and I'm watching the pros come in, and I see their approaches and I'm going, these are all really good, but I've done that. I can do that. I can do what these guys can do. And you watch Halliburton hit that jump shot. He can do what we all can do what he did. But here's the big difference. There's nobody trying to knock your head off. There's no pressure to the situation. There's not 70,000 fans screaming for you to throw an interception. And that is the component of what makes this position so hard to judge. We can look at guys. I remember when Alex Smith did his root workout for Pro Day and not a football hit the ground. And there were everybody that left the workout said, this is the greatest workout I've ever seen from a college quarterback. And I laughed. I'm like, that's cool. He made throws in practice with nobody rushing him and no defender on his wide receiver. I would think everybody would be able to do that every time. So, yes, he looks great. But what's going to determine the starting quarterback is when the bullets start to fly, does he still look great? And I'm not saying that he can't, and I'm not saying that he can. What I'm saying is
We're going to find out.
we're going to find out.
That's the best part about
that
football.
is the best part.
Like we can talk. Like look, we used to say this all the time. We back to high school. Everybody talk. Everybody is talking in the city. Everybody moving around. That's good. You got your little camps. You're throwing the football around. We're going to see when you get the pads on.
Ball don't lie.
When the two-a-days start flying and them pads get to getting in there and they rushing the quarterback. And you know what the cool thing about it is? Some people don't look like they nothing when they playing with 7-on-7. The ball don't come out on time. The ball look kind of wobbly. Don't look like it get there, and it's rugged. But then something happened to certain people when they get in the game, and it's just like, well, is he faster? Is he stronger? What the heck happened? You weren't making them throws. Some people look. I always take you to Bernie Kosar. Bernie Kosar played in the era where they had the best quarterbacks alive. He played with Montana. He played with Young. He played with Marino. He played with all these great people, Troy Aikman. And guess what? When that light came on, Bernie wasn't the fastest in that drop. He wasn't the greatest arm. It looked terrible coming outside arm, but guess what he was? He was a baller when them lights came on.
NFL Films did a segment on Bernie Kosar, the ugly ostrich.
One of the best things. Go watch it.
It was awesome.
Go watch it.
Google it and check it out. I mean, it was just so true. I remember when I saw it for the first time, I thought, wow, I'm not the only one that thinks he looks like he's throwing with his opposite hand.
Crazy.
He was. The segment starts with the former voice of NFL Films talking about his awful footwork, and he trips. He had to invent the step back because he wasn't fast enough to get out of center. The center was faster in his retreat than Bernie was in his drop back. And Bernie was getting his feet tangled, so he cocked his right foot to give him a head start.
Yeah.
And they talked about that in this segment, and they said, and they interviewed people like Boomer Esiason saying, man, that's one of the ugliest throw motions I've ever seen. And everybody dumps on Bernie's throwing motions, and they show this.
Yeah, and how he was to run and scramble.
Yeah, and he was like, kind of like this. And then they said, but when there's 1 minute left and your team's down by 5,
and ain't got nothing.
There's no one you want more than this ugly ostrich to lead your offense, because that's when this kicks in. And it's also when most people crumble under the pressure. Pressure builds diamonds, pressure bursts pipes.
And that to me, Jason, that right there, and to know if you have a franchise quarterback, you're not going to see that until you get in that situation.
Yes.
The one thing,
Yes.
I don't know much right now about Shedeur as an NFL quarterback. I don't think any of us do. The one thing I do know is he is not rattled by any of this noise around him. He's grown up in it. He's used to it. He's had Prime as a dad his whole life. He's used to the cameras.
He grew up in that.
He's used to the noise. Nothing you can say Nothing you can do will rattle him. He hasn't seen anything that's going to rattle. So I don't worry about that. Now it's just a matter of getting the reps because he still doesn't have the reps that we've seen. He still doesn't have any reps with and that's why, everything that I've seen the ball come out. I watch him at practice. He's got a good touch. His arm is fine. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He doesn't need the strongest arm. It's fine. Everything has been fine, but we need to see it in 11 on 11. We need to see it with the starters. And to this point, even with the starters, half the starters aren't there.
You know when
so
I need
even
to see
the starters aren't really the starters.
Normally, I would say, well, I need to see it in a preseason game, but I'm going to need to see it in the regular season. That's why we've got to look at him this year in regular season football when they're keeping score and it's sticking to your resume and the bullets that are flying are live.
Yeah.
I want to see him in that situation. And, Joe Thomas on our show a couple of weeks ago said it best. We're going to know, and it's not going to take long.
Right.
Step by step.
If you think about it with Johnny Manziel, didn't take long for us to realize.
Didn't take long for them to realize. It took a while for us to realize. Because you don't see it every day.
And that's
They
what
see it
worries
every
me
day.
about this. Everybody jumped into their camps with Johnny Manziel. Everybody jumped into their camps with Baker Mayfield. Everybody has jumped into their camp with Shedeur Sanders. You can be wrong on your first assessment. Many people are. That's what makes it the hardest position in sports to project ability. So until we see it, and on a somewhat regular basis against real teams in the regular season, I don't think anybody should sit back and say, oh, he's our guy. Yeah. He's our franchise quarterback. You can't possibly know that on June 6th.
You can have faith in people, but listen, take it step by step. We all going to find out. We all agree that he's going to play at some point. And at some point, we will get an evaluation. It just happens to be we're in June. We got some time left.
Yeah, to finish the analogy, she said he's got a 100% chance that he could be the starter. And I said I have a 100% chance that I could win the lottery. I'll know when I scratch that dust off my ticket.
Right.
There's my answer. Oh, damn. Another losing ticket. I now have a 0% chance of winning on that lottery.
Right.
But when I go to the store to buy another ticket, I now have a 100% chance that I could win the lottery.